Hey there guys, Farmman Official here, and welcome to this Age of Empires 4 build order for the French civilization. This is going to be a 2 TC boom build order, and you're going to have constant night production from the School of Cavalry. I really like this build order. It's something very different from what we usually have on the channel, which is kind of like 1 TC pushes, and it's always good to have multiple strategies in your belt for different civilizations. So, first things first, as usual, you queue up villagers in your town centre, and you take the idle villagers that are waiting there to sheep. You take your scout and waypoint the scout around your base to find extra sheep as soon as you can. Once you've done these tasks, take a villager straight away from underneath the TC to build a house and then go to gold. What you'll do then is the next 3 villagers from the TC will go to food, to make 8 in total on food before you move to anything else. Keep your scout active, you want as many sheep as possible. So I quite like the fact that you can have the School of Cavalry with night production to protect your villagers that are building your second town centre, but soon after that you'll actually be able to go forward with about 3 or 4 knights perhaps, and put some early pressure. And of course we'll develop the build order from there, and we'll talk about future strategies and adaptations. But the end point of this build order really is the feudal age, the second TC and constant night production, so we'll talk through that. Now once you've got 8 villagers on food, you'll send the next villager to gold. And that's where we're at now in this video demonstration. Once that second villager to gold has come out, you'll then send the next 3 villagers to wood. So the reason why I quite like having 2 TCs is because you can constantly push, but you'll also have eco behind this, and with a really nice clean build, you can make sure that your eco's on point. What I would say though is if you're facing a 1 TC push from your opponent, you'll need to be defensive and just make sure you stop the push as much as you possibly can and get a lead on economy. So as you can see, we've got plenty of sheep coming in now. Now once you've got 3 villagers to wood, you want to send the next 4 villagers to stone. Okay, so far so good. And in terms of building this School of Cavalry, we will take 2 villagers from gold to do that as soon as we hit 200 gold. And you can see that now. That's exactly what we've done. What we'll do as soon as we've started to build a School of Cavalry though, we'll take 1 villager from underneath the TC to build a house and then go to gold. And as you can see, we're getting our villagers on stone as well. So far so good. Don't forget the villagers that are building the School of Cavalry, you'll need to shift click them back to gold as well. Just one little tip as well, with the wood line, you want to take the villagers to chop the same tree, because there is a bit of a delay in terms of gathering wood. When you newly chop a tree, it takes about 10 seconds for that tree to actually be chopped down before you start gathering any wood. So it's best to take the villagers to chop the same tree so that you're just getting the wood nice and early. So now that we've got 4 villagers on stone, we're going to send the next 4 villagers to wood. We had 3 villagers on wood already. Adding 4 will make 7 in total for now. Now this is a really good time in the build order to make sure that you're scouting your opponent and finding where their key resources are. Depending on their civilization, just think about what units they're likely to produce and try and deny those resources if you can. If they're playing as the French or the Rus, just think they may be going for knights, so think about cutting off their access to gold or perhaps a food resource, for instance their deer or their berries. If however they're playing as the English for example, they may be going for longbowmen most likely, so think about cutting off their food resources in particular. But to be honest, anything you can deny is always great. So you can see we're keeping the villagers chopping the same tree as far as possible. Now that we've got 7 villagers on wood, we're going to send the next 3 villagers to gold. It's important to note here that once the 3 villagers have come out to gold, that TC will then start to get new villagers to go back to food. Now so at this point you need to keep an eye out because your School of Cavalry is almost built. And what you'll need to do is have a look to see where your next TC placement should be. Try and put it in an area where there's 2 resources, food and wood. Ideally, the best combination is probably deer and wood, but if you can't do that, perhaps berries and wood, but we'll talk about priorities later on in the video. And as you can see guys, we hit fuselage bang on about 5 minutes, but I think this is a relatively solid uptime, so that's the time you should be targeting really. 5 minutes for fuselage and having enough resources to drop your second town centre. So as soon as you've got 300 stone, like we do now, we take those 4 villagers from stone to build your second town centre. So the 4 villagers now are going there, and we're going to produce knights as well. Initially I'm just going to keep the knights back at home to protect those villagers that are building the TC in case we're up against a Dark Age rush, perhaps for example from the Mongols, or something similar in terms of an aggressive strategy. Okie dokie. Now also at this point you want to take 2 villagers from the wood line to the town centre to collect food from the sheep that's there, and also 1 villager from the wood line, build a house and then go to gold, to make 7 in total on gold. Okay, so let's talk about follow-up. Now the villagers that are going to come out from the second TC are going to go to the food resource, because that's what we're really going to need in the early game. Now keep an eye on your wood count, because you'll want to build a blacksmith as soon as you can, and the reason for that is the French get the melee attack upgrade for free as soon as the blacksmith is built, which is absolutely fantastic. It really helps and you want to take advantage of that. Okay, we've got the second town centre producing and we've got 2 knights on the field. Now we're going to go forward, we're going to cause some harassment if we can, and just constantly produce villagers and develop your economy. What I'd probably recommend from here in terms of economic upgrades, I'd go for double broadaxe and wheelbarrow as soon as you can afford it. And from the blacksmith, you'll want to get iron undermesh if you're up against archer civs, or perhaps the English in terms of if they're getting longbowmen. Also though, the iron undermesh does help against TC fire, so you can dive a little bit closer without taking as much damage. Don't forget as well, the French get chivalry. That's a really nice technology to have, because if you can micro your knights when they're low health, they can heal for you, and it's really cost effective. So let's talk about adaptations, shall we? Think about your army composition. Do you want to add another stable for more knights? Or an archery range perhaps for archers, in case your opponent's gone for spearmen? And make sure your economy is well balanced depending on what resources you're going to need for your units. Depending on how your game is turning out, if you're doing fuselage pressure and damage, and you think a ram push might be effective, of course think about siege engineering as an upgrade, as early as possible, because it does take time to research. If however you don't think a fuselage push is going to work, make sure you do continue to produce a decent amount of army so you can defend yourself. But think about castle age, which of course you need plenty of food and plenty of gold, but with 2 TCs hopefully it shouldn't be too long before you get there. Speaking of castle age, the French have access to the Royal Institute and the Guild Hall. The Royal Institute is a military landmark which houses all technologies unique to the French. Research is 20% cheaper here and ignores age requirements. The Guild Hall is an economic landmark and generates and stores resources over time. The more resources stored, the faster they are generated. Select between food, wood, stone or gold. Both landmarks cost exactly the same resources to build, 1,200 food and 600 gold, and both take 3 minutes and 40 seconds to build. Now knowing which one to choose is really going to depend on the game that you're playing. If you really want to look for a strong push military wise, the Royal Institute could be quite good as long as you've got the resources to upgrade your current army and you have got a decent sizable army. The Guild Hall could be quite useful if you're thinking about a long game, and could be particularly useful on water maps for instance, where you might be running out of resources. But to be honest guys, you can't really make a recommendation on which one, it just really depends on how your game's panning out. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this build order. If you did, please do give the video a like, it really helps the channel. And if you'd like to see more build orders or just Age of Empires 4 content in general, do subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty of content lined up for you guys. If you'd like to see other build orders I have on the channel, click the right hand card screen now and that will take you to the playlist of all my build orders. Or if you'd like to see the French Night Rush build order, which is just a 1 TC push, click the left hand card screen now. Take care guys, see you on the next video or on the next live stream.